Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to this episode of our show. This is your host, Keith Doherty. Today our special guest is top real estate broker Shannon Pyatt of Wilkinson ERA LKN Dream Homes based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Shannon has been in the business for 12 years now, a father of 3 amazing children, Maleia, Maggie, Shannon Jr., a.k.a. Bubba, and husband to his beautiful wife, Leah. He serves as a worship leader and drummer at his church. He received his first runner-up in Marketing of the Year competition in Dallas, Texas in 2014. His achievements include being featured as North Carolina Broker of the Year 2015 for Top Agent Magazine, Leaders Circle ERA National past 2 years in a row from 2014 to 15, as well as Strategic Listing Specialist and Strategic Pricing Specialist designation. He has written a faith real estate-based book about his life struggles, how his faith in God allowed him to overcome addictions and homelessness, as well as how he is able to use that to help sellers achieve their goals. Their team is also a Dave Ramsey endorsed local provider, ranked number 1 in their region and ranked number 8 in the state of North Carolina and top 100 nationwide. So with all that, Shannon, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Keith. I appreciate you having me on today.
Shannon, I guess we could start for our listeners. What led you into real estate? Was it something that you knew you always wanted to do, or did you maybe stumble into it?
You know, I don't think anyone knows that they want to wake up one day and become a real estate agent. I just don't see that happening. What it was for me, I spent many years as a radio broadcaster. That's what I did. I was on the other side of the microphone. I was, doing the, 7 to midnight show, the morning shows, the midday shows, you name it. That's what I did. I ended up falling into real estate by accident. To be perfectly honest with you, it was just kind of one of those fallback things. I always thought I was going to be this big radio guy and I was going to have all these nationally syndicated programs and stuff, and then I realized how difficult it was, even after spending, 10, 15 years in there, and all of a sudden someone buys out a radio station and you're out. You have nothing. And so realistically, I ended up going into new home sales. The new home sales didn't work out very well for me. I ended up transferring over and getting my license. But believe it or not, Keith, my last radio job was I was kind of like a shock jock radio announcer, kind of like a Howard Stern, if you will. I know you read that I was part of that I'm a worship leader at my church and things now. So that's the big change. That's the 360 degree turnaround, so to speak. But no, I was basically just kind of a do whatever I want to, drinking, whatever you want to call it. I just living the party lifestyle. And so I got into real estate because, believe it or not, originally I thought that, hey, if I get into real estate, I'll set my own hours. I can go out and have fun if I want to and work when I want to and not work when I want to. And I thought it was going to be a cakewalk. And boy, was I misguided. So that's really how I got into real estate, and it was actually an accident. It was not something that was planned. I got in it for the wrong reasons, but obviously I'm in it for the right ones now.
Yeah, I think a point you made there, and we've done interviewed a lot of real estate professionals on the show, and I don't think there's some people that were raised around real estate and that kind of led them, but I don't think anybody, like you said, an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old child, you say, hey, what do you want to do? They're like, oh, I want to be a real estate agent when I grow up. It definitely, and it's surprising, as lucrative as a career as it can be and rewarding for helping others. It doesn't seem to be like, I want to be a cop or a doctor or a lawyer type thing, even though you can potentially help more people and make a lot more, financial, gains with it. But, yeah, you're right. It doesn't seem to be like, oh, yeah, I knew when I was born I was going to be an agent, type thing.
It was a default thing. It just kind of fell into place. But I thank God every day that it did, because it's turned my life around for sure.
So, Shannon, do you think you could talk a little bit about maybe some of your personal attributes, traits, or qualities that you think have most contributed to the success that you've been able to have, and also maybe talk a little bit about how you develop those?
Okay. For me, there's a lot of things coming from a radio, and you obviously being in radio, you understand, you have an extensive marketing background. And so that's the one thing that I have in my corner, I truly believe, is my extensive marketing background. I came from, learning how to write, produce commercials, how to, so I knew what to say and how to say it to engage people. As far as my best qualities that I have, I mean, honestly, and you mentioned this earlier, is my faith story. And just to kind of touch base on that a little bit. Like I said, I was a shock jock radio announcer. I ended up living. I was living in Columbus, Ohio at the time. I met up with a girl that I had gone to school with 20 years earlier here in North Carolina, because I'm originally from North Carolina, and ended up going out with her, fell in love with her. She's now my wife, Leah. We've been married now for 7 years, and she is the light of my life. But I'll tell you what ended up happening was she got into an accident, and we had to go and see a attorney, and the attorney referred us to a chiropractor. And the chiropractor went in and he said, basically, he had a business card that said, "God heals, we care." Now, you got to remember, I've been a shock jock radio announcer. The last thing I want to hear about is God, right? And so this gentleman basically said, hey, look, here's the, where do you guys go to church? I said, look, it's not my thing. Long story short, what ends up happening is she, after we talked to this guy, he said, look, there's a church right down the road called Grace, and you can go there on Monday nights. I went in. I didn't know anything about it. I go in there. They got guys with long hair and ripped up jeans and guitars and drums and everything else. I've been a drummer all my life. I didn't know this kind of music existed. And so anyway, long story short was the pastor at the end of the service, we started talking to him, and he let us know that their drummer was leaving and moving out of state. And they didn't have a drummer. And so I stepped up and became their drummer, and I've been there for the past 7 years, helping lead worship every single Monday night. So I believe that my best trait, my best quality, my best attribute is that whenever I go to work for someone, I don't do it for me anymore. I don't do it for what's best for me. I don't do it for the financial gain for me. I do it because in what I've learned with my faith is that if I work for someone as though I am working for the Lord himself, then I am working to the best, the absolute best that I can for that particular client. And I tell people, look, you don't have to believe the same way that I believe. You don't have to do the same thing that I do, because let me tell you something. It took me years and years and years to come around. And, here's the thing. All I want you to know is that when I go to work for you, I'm going to give it my best. I'm going to take my years of marketing. I'm going to put that to work for you. I'm going to take my extensive background in networking and I'm a geek. I'm really a computer geek. I know how to get SEO, get automatic SEO, and I can do all that stuff. I can backlink and all that stuff and get people's homes to where they're really, really shining and get them on the front pages of Google and YouTube and places like that. And I tell them, I say, you know what? I'm going to take everything I've got and I'm going to pour it into you as though you're my only client. And really, that's that. If you're talking about attributes, traits, and qualities, all that I truly believe came through my faith of turning my life around. I really do.
It's kind of funny, God works in strange ways, and like you said, you weren't really, that wasn't your thing, right? You said, you're kind of the shock jock, and but yet the way he drew you in, which I think is an interesting story, is like, hey, I know Shannon likes to drum. It's kind of weird how that worked out. Oh, we just happen to have an opening for a drummer, so it kind of like, all right, I'll check this out, and it kind of worked out to where it kind of brought you under that umbrella. So
Absolutely. I was 600 miles away, almost 600 miles away, and I landed in this church on this particular night, and they just happened to be playing a rock and roll type Christian music that I didn't even know existed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how God spoke to me. He spoke to me through that music because he knew that if it was any other thing, if it would have been somebody with a choir up there or something, I would have been bored out of my mind, and I would have never thought twice about it.
Excellent. And do you think maybe you can kind of expand upon that, from a real estate standpoint, and talk maybe a little bit, or give us a specific example of when you've used your traits and they've helped play a role in your path towards success?
Oh, absolutely. Especially, I work primarily with sellers. I do a little bit with buyers, but I pretty much have buyer's agents that work for me who show the properties. And that's one of the things that I tell sellers is, look, hey, you're never going to have to worry about am I going to work for your best interest? Am I going to work for the buyer's best interest? Because I don't do dual agency. I have my buyer's agent show my properties, and then I list them and market them. And so for me, those traits basically, a lot of times we end up, if people are the same faith we are, we end up praying with them at this, over the sale of their home. A lot of times that helps. We utilize the marketing side. The coming soon marketing is a big thing for me. So I will take a listing 2 or 3 weeks before it hits the market and really blast it out and really get excitement and buzz created about it to where that it's almost a bidding war when it hits the market. And that all comes from just being in radio and knowing how to, knowing how to speak to the consumer through the marketing.
Excellent. And obviously, you've talked a little bit about this throughout your, your life in general, but maybe if we could kind of look at this from a, your real estate, your 12 years of real estate, could you talk maybe a little bit about some of the major adversities and trials that you had to overcome in order to have the success that you've had?
Where do I begin? Oh my gosh, there's been so many different adversities throughout the 12 years. Every single agent, especially after 1 or 2 years in the business, and here's what I got to give to anyone who's starting out is don't give up. You've got to persevere. You've got to conquer through it. You cannot just sit back and wait and expect the business to come to you. And if it doesn't come to you in the first year or two, and then walk away, you can't do that. And so for me, it was the staying power. It was just staying in it, trying to keep alive somehow, some way. That would have been one of the major adversities. The other major adversities that you run into, obviously, is, people that, you sell their home it takes too long to sell their home, or it takes too short of a time to sell their home. Believe it or not, people get really upset if you sell their home quickly, more than they do if it takes longer to sell the home, which is quite interesting because you're like, you hired me to do that. But there's been all kinds of trials. I remember one time specifically, and not to play on the faith thing too much again, but this is really important as far as adversity in a trial. I remember a few years back, I had moved from Ohio, so obviously I'd done real estate up there, and then I came here. And things weren't going good here. Things at first were just not going good here, and my wife and I were really struggling. I mean, really struggling. I'm talking, to where we were eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And what ended up happening was I got a closing through a buyer, and it was a check for $10,000. And I didn't really know. I'd read, obviously I've been leading worship at the church, and I'd read that you had to give back, quote unquote, you had to tithe and all this different stuff. And I'm like, man, $10,000, we haven't paid our bills in I don't know how long. How am I going to give $1,000 of this money that we truly need, right? And so I went to the pastor and I told him, I said, look, what am I supposed to do? I said, I believe maybe if I give $500, that'll work. And he said, well, if you give $500 and God had $5,000 planned for you later this week, but he said you got the $500, so you're okay now, right? And I said, no, actually, I'd rather have the $5,000 than the $500. And he said, well, then do what you feel is best. Well, when they passed everything around, I had a check for $1,000, a check for $500 in each pocket. And I reached into both pockets at the time. I pulled out $1,500 and I laid it in that offering plate. And I'll never forget the feeling I had. I was so sick to my stomach. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I had 3 listings. Those 3 listings weren't getting shown. There was nothing going on. I said, God, if you exist and this is real, I need you to turn this around for me. And I'm going to tell you right now, Keith, I could not make this up. All 3 listings went under contract the very next morning. I ended up having one of them close in 7 days, all cash. I made $38,000 that month just from overcoming that trial and that adversity. Just from being in that fearful zone to that trusting zone.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. Our business that we started about 7 years ago now, and I was born and raised Catholic. So I was in the church. Everything was fine. We ended up leaving the church because it just got a bad taste, and we found a non-denominational church and setting up the business, and they talked about the tithing, and I said, well, I'm gonna set it up right. And so from day one, I remember signing our first big client. I walked into, it was actually a big deal that we had signed. It was like $7,000, and I walked into the pastor. I ran right over there after the meeting, and I brought him a check for $700. And he's like, what's this? I said, oh, that's my tithe. He goes, that's your tithe? I said, yeah. And from that day forward, I know it's hard. I kind of use the same position. That's why I'm kind of sharing that with you. Usually, it's amazing to continue to do that. And it's almost like that 10%. And I think what you did is you kind of went over, like the 10% is to almost put you even, from what I've learned. It's almost like, okay, you owe the 10% just to clear the slate of we're even, and then you gave. So then you actually gave. That 500 was the seed that you planted. Absolutely. And obviously what it grew into was phenomenal for you. So I appreciate you sharing that side of things.
Yeah. So, so for me, that's how I turned all my trials and adversities and basically turned my business into a ministry now. And I got to tell you, I get tons of business off of it. As a matter of fact, Dave Ramsey's office, Dave Ramsey through Financial Peace University, of course, and through the churches, his office reached out to me. I didn't reach out to them. They reached out to me and wanted me as a part of the team. And we signed on a year ago, and we're now #1 in the Charlotte region. And I don't believe that's through all of everything of what I do. I believe that that's, giving back. I believe that that's running a good God-oriented company because that's what Dave does. And I believe that's what caught his attention with us.
Excellent. And I pretty much kind of know where the answer of this next question is going to go, but I want to throw it out for our listeners anyway. Is what kept you going? Obviously, you could have given up, and you really said stay the fight, especially if you're new. But what's your driving force? Why didn't you give up? Why did you keep going?
My driving force years ago was money. I'm going to be honest with you. My driving force when I got out of radio and went into real estate, my driving force was money. There's a problem when you have money as your driving force. You're focused on yourself. You're not focused on anything else but yourself and your own personal gain. Zig Ziglar once said, if you want to get where you're going, you got to help enough people get there. And I truly believe that now. I didn't believe that before. But now, obviously, that driving force is my faith in God. Absolutely. He's the one who keeps me going, who keeps me encouraged every day, even when things come up. I mean, like this morning, everything that could have possibly gone wrong today did go wrong. And my wife came in and she told me, she said, you know what? She said, don't let it beat you up. She said, it's just the devil trying to get to you because he knows you're getting ready to go on national radio and give your testimony about what God has done for you and how he's delivered you from sleeping in a car over 15 years ago. And she said, don't let that discourage you, and I want you to clear your mind and get focused for this. And you know as well as I do, those obstacles come up, and if you don't have something driving that behind you, now for me it's God. It doesn't have to be for everybody, but you've got to have something. You've got to have your family. You've got to have your children. You've got to have something driving you to your goal. Here's the thing, as real estate agents, we can't just wake up each morning and go, okay, well, we're going to go through the day, we're going to do this. No, I have a vision board sitting behind me. It tells me exactly how much I need to make for the year. It tells me exactly how many transactions I need to do. It tells me I want to pay off my Mercedes. I want to pay this. I want to do this. I want to do this. It has all these different things that I want to accomplish within that year. And I look at that every single morning when I walk into the office, and then I get on my knees and I say, God, help me accomplish this. If you don't have a why, the what will never happen, or the how will never happen.
Yeah, I think it's a huge point to point out for our listeners is like you said, your driving force is obviously God. You said, that your faith, moves you. But I think the other thing you said that's important for everybody is even if you're not a spiritual person, that's okay. Maybe you haven't gotten there yet, and that's fine. But the big other takeaway I think that you said is the why. And we've talked about that before on the show. Is you got to have something bigger than yourself. There has to be something, whether it's your family, whether it's something, your driving force, that why. If you don't have that, like you said, you're not going to have anything to fight for. So you really need to understand that. And like another thing you pointed out, which I think is great, is to have that vision board. And it doesn't matter how elaborate you think it is, but plan it all out, make that vision board, get as extreme as you want, have that why, and be able to look at it every day, and that's going to give you the inspiration of like, okay, I got to get back on, I got to make, a few more calls there, or I got to hit these numbers, or I got to do this. Mm-hmm. That's going to give you that inspiration, that motivation every day to take action.
If you don't have a target, you'll hit it every time.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess, Shannon, looking forward a little bit, what do you see your vision for your career, say, over the next 5 years?
Over the next 5 years, I do some coaching also. I coach some real estate agents nationwide on a national level. I've got about 10 agents that I work with right now that I coach as far as, showing them my systems, showing them, holding them accountable, just things that a real estate coach would do. So for me, I see my coaching growing a little bit more. I see my team growing, maybe having some people that will actually, because right now I'm the lister right now. I'm doing the listings, but at some point maybe having someone who can go in and do what I do as far as the listings go. Basically, I kind of step back and oversee it and run it and do more of a coaching consulting type thing. Not that I don't enjoy what I do. I do enjoy what I do, but I also enjoy helping people. I enjoy seeing people succeed. And because I wish that someone would have taken the time to do that with me a long time ago. And I can tell you right now that that's where I see things going, is basically having, Lake Norman Dream Homes as a team, but basically kind of stepping back and overseeing it more, not necessarily being in it because I have to be in it, being in it because I want to be in it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I guess, you mentioned, your background and having some marketing background, but I guess as in the real estate industry, what do you feel is the best way that you market yourself as a real estate professional so you can have continual growth?
The number one way to market yourself, period, bar none, is word of mouth. Referrals are the way to go. People think that, and I used to think this too, people used to think that you go out and you get new business every day. You get new business every day. You get new business every day. Well, you know what? That's called a job. That's not a career. And if you have referrals, if you create people, if you create lasting relationships, one thing that I do without fail every single week is I take a past client or someone in my sphere of influence, I take them for coffee or lunch every single week. One person every single week without fail. And let me tell you what that does. It builds the relationship stronger, number one. Number two, they can't help but refer you because there's a law of reciprocity there. Reciprocity says if you do something for me, I feel obligated to do it for you. Okay? So I would tell any agents out there, work your sphere of influence, work your referral base, continue to stay in constant contact with those people. I have my A pluses, my A's, my B's, and my C's. Those are my my people in order, and I've sorted that database for that particular reason. And so I focus mainly on my A pluses, then my A's, and then my B's, and then my C's. And everybody kind of gets in there, but my A pluses, you better bet they're going to lunch, they're going to coffee. If it's their birthday, I'm sending a birthday card, I'm sending a gift. If they have a baby, I'm sending a gift card. Those kind of things, and you better believe within the last 6 months alone, I've generated 17 referral leads from past clients. Most agents don't generate 17 referral leads in 3 years. That's your number one thing. Number two for me, if we want to step into the modern world, is Facebook, social media. I pretty much rule social media around here. And what's really funny, I was at the car wash the other day, and I was getting my car washed, and the guy came up to me, and he goes, "Shannon." And I'm like, "Okay, who are you?" I didn't know who he was. And he's like, "No, you're Shannon, Pyatt Pratt." He couldn't say my last name. He didn't know my last name, but he knew my first name. And I said, "Yeah." I said, how do I know you?" And he said, "Oh, man," he said, "you're always on Facebook." He said, "I tell everybody I know if they're looking to sell their house, they have to make sure that they call you because you'll make sure that their house is everywhere." So, and here's a person I don't even know that I ended up going to coffee with. Comes to find out he goes to my church. There's all kinds of different things. And so now I've got this guy out there referring business to me. I go and see a for sale by owner. I work a lot with for sale by owners. I go and see a for sale by owner. I build such a rapport with them that they feel obligated to send me their buyer leads, or if they know someone who's looking to sell. And of course, obviously, if they get to a point they don't want to sell, then they'll list with me as well. But it's all about relationship building, and I wish I would have known this 10 years ago. I could have saved myself a lot of heartache because I've gone through finding internet leads, selling them a home, and moving on, and selling a home and moving on, and never contacting these people again. The hardest thing I ever did, Keith, was pick up the phone and call through my entire database of about, 300 of my top clients. Now, I've got plenty others, but 300 that were really good clients that I felt like I had a really good rapport with, okay, here in North Carolina. The hardest thing to do was pick up the phone after 5 years of not hearing from me at all and saying, "You know what, Josh, I goofed. I didn't reach out to you the way I was supposed to. I let the ball slip. I really messed up. Can you forgive me, and can we go to lunch?" And let me tell you something. When I did that, my business changed.
Yeah, that's. I think another thing you brought up too, and one of the key points, especially like you said with referrals, is the front of mind thing. Like you said, just whether it's just a card on a birthday, whether it is getting together, but to stay front of mind, and even you're doing that with strangers on Facebook, that you're front of mind to somebody that's never even worked with you, but you're there because he sees you on a continual basis. And I think that's one of the key points. Whether you're in real estate or any type of sales position, you want to be visible to people so that they can say, "Oh yeah," because people like to have the answer when somebody comes to you. Like if somebody comes to me, "Keith, think about selling my house," they're like, "Oh, you want to use Shannon, right? I know Shannon's going to take care of you." And this guy saw how you were doing it and how you presented yourself, so he wanted to be like, "Oh, I'll tell everybody. I tell everybody to use you because I see how you conduct your business."
Exactly. And what a lot of people don't understand is people say, "I want to get on the internet train and I want to buy all these ads from Zillow and Trulia and all these other companies." And I don't buy those. I'll be honest with you. I don't spend the money on them because to me, I want to be the one that's building my own business, and I don't necessarily. And the internet leads. You got to understand something. Internet leads. It takes 200 internet leads to get 2 good qualified buyers or 2 good qualified sellers. So you're looking at 100-to-1 ratio. That's an incredible ratio to try to overcome. You know what I mean? So realistically, for me, whenever I'm dealing with a referral, I'm the only one going in there. If it's an internet lead, I could be one of 6, one of 7 listing agents that are going in for this listing. So referral is so important, and I dropped the ball on it, and I didn't realize how important it was. And let me tell you, it has made a world of difference in my life.
Excellent. I guess if we kind of, I think sometimes when people look at real estate agents, both sides, I think the barrier to entry is pretty easy for people. You take a little bit of education, you take a test, you get a license, and then I think people assume it's pretty straightforward to get involved. And I think on the other side, from like say a seller standpoint, you said you deal with for sale by owners, and I think sometimes for sale by owner people don't realize all the legalities and all the ins and outs and everything I think that an agent brings to the table. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what you think the biggest misconception or myth people have about working with a real estate agent.
Well, if you're dealing with a for sale by owner, that's an easy one, because the for sale by owner always thinks they can do it just as easy as you can. That's the biggest misconception right there. The buyer's agent thinks that they don't, or the buyer rather, doesn't think that they need anybody except for just to open the door. They don't realize that there's home inspections, there's appraisals, there's all these different things that can come up. There's TRID now, which is now comically nicknamed the reason I drink. But realistically, there's all these obstacles that can come up. There's 87 different things that can happen, that are wrong with a purchase. There's over 100 that could happen that's wrong, that could go wrong with a seller. And so what happens is, a for sale by owner, one of the questions I ask them whenever I sit down with someone and I'm talking about listing their property is I say, what do you think you can do on your own that a real estate agent can't do? And the first thing that they say is, well, pretty much I can do everything but get it on the MLS. And that's their answer. That's what they always think, is I can do everything but get it on the MLS. And by the time I walk through my presentation, I tell them about the coming soon marketing. I tell them about the text-to-email features that I have for the phones and how our buyer's agents are being able to follow up. I tell them about the drone photography. I tell them there's all these different things that I tell them that they never once thought would be important. They thought that they could walk out with their iPhone, snap a few pictures of the house, don't even clean it up, and put it online and sell it. And that's not it. There's staging, there's photography, there's so many different aspects that you have to go through in order to really get this done. And that's not even counting the legalities. That's not counting, getting in contact with the appraiser and getting in contact with the lender and following up with the buyer's agent to make sure that everything's on track, and following up with the attorney to make sure that everything's going to close escrow okay, make sure that the title work is in. There's so many things that people don't realize. They think it's just, okay, I throw a sign in the yard and I'm able to sell it, and it's really not that easy.
Excellent. And this kind of a question we like to ask, but kind of gives you a situation. Let's say you get a call from a family member in another state, and they want to sell their home. And what advice would you give them about selecting an agent that can best serve their needs? Now, we understand you could potentially look up agents and things like that, but maybe just some general guidelines for people to go by of how you would advise them in order to go about selecting an agent that could serve their needs, kind of like how you take care of your people.
Well, I tell people this. You always look for integrity in a person, not skill. Now, skill is important. I'm not saying skill is not important, but when I'm hiring someone for a buyer's agent, or I'm hiring a listing agent, or someone on my team, whoever it may be, all the way down to my courier, I look for integrity. I don't look for skill, because here's the thing. Skill can be taught. Okay, skill is, and it is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but the integrity of that person. Are they going to do the right thing at all costs? Are they going to put your needs ahead of their own? Are they going to, no matter how hard it is, give you a call and say, gosh, you know what, I messed up. I really made a mistake, and I'm really sorry. Are they going to do that? Or are they going to just try to cover it up, or be focused on themselves, focused on the money? You don't ever want to get someone that's focused on the paycheck. The minute you start focusing on the paycheck in this business is the minute you become broke and you become unemployed. I firmly believe that. If you're not focused on the well-being of the client, what is in their best interest, and the whole time thinking, okay, this is not one transaction. Because I have people call me up all the time and they say, you know what, I've got a $75,000 house, and I know most of your listings are $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and I've got a $75,000 listing. I don't think you would want to take that. I hear that so much, Keith, and I tell them, I say, you know what, I'm not worried about the price point of your home. I'm going to help you find a buyer. I'm going to help you get it sold. You're going to love what I do so much that you're going to tell 10 other people about how great I did. And one of those could be $1 million listing. I don't know. So the whole point is, if you focus on being a transactional agent, you will fail. If you focus on being a relational agent, you will make it. So I tell people this, if you're looking for an agent, you want to look for relationships. You want to look for a relational focused agent. You want someone who's going to put your needs ahead of their own and not be focused on the transaction. That's plain and simple. That's the only way I know to answer that question.
Excellent. Great advice. And Shannon, if somebody needs real estate advice or an agent, and especially in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, what's the best way they can find out more information about you and how you can help them?
Well, of course, they can go to my website. That's shannonpyatt, Pyatt.com. They can also give me a call or shoot me a text at 704-968-2821, or if they want to email me, they can do that too. Shannon, SHANNON, .Pyatt, Pyatt, at ERA.com. I'd love to help them any way that I possibly can. Any other real estate agents that are listening, I do work referrals, so I will send business your way. You send business my way. If you think like I do, then I'm always looking for like-minded people like that as well.
Excellent. Well, Shannon, we certainly want to extend a big thank you to you for coming here today and sharing your real estate business experience with all of our listeners. And if anybody's listening today and you want to know more about Shannon, you can visit his site as he suggested. Also below this interview, we're going to have a link to his website as well as any other contact information that he provided. We have his email as well as any other contact or phone information. And with that all said, everybody, until our next show, have a great day, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.